was just a boy, 12 years old, but what happened inside that small Jacksonville apartment in 2011 would leave the entire nation stunned. How does a child end up charged with first-degree murder? How does a 12-year-old find himself in prison without the possibility of parole? This is not just a case about crime. It's a story about pain, trauma, and a justice system forced to make an impossible choice. Today, we bring you one of Florida's most controversial cases in modern history. The story of Cristian Fernandez, the youngest person ever charged as an adult with murder in Jacksonville. Welcome to Mystery Unveiled. Thank you, my viewers. A special thank you to our loyal subscribers for joining us as we uncover the darkest, most gripping true crime stories every single day. Your support fuels our mission to bring you both infamous cases and chilling untold mysteries. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. To understand the case, we must begin long before the tragic death of 2-year-old David Galarraga. Cristian Fernandez entered this world surrounded by violence. His mother, Bianella Susana, was only 12 years old when she gave birth to him after being raped by a 25-year-old man. He never knew his biological father, and his young mother, barely more than a child herself, struggled with parenting from day one. They lived a transient, unstable life, moving from place to place, often with little money, support, or guidance. By the time Cristian was in elementary school, his life was filled with trauma. He lived in shelters, spent time in foster care, and was exposed to severe domestic violence. One of the most defining events of his young life came when he was just 11. His stepfather, who had beaten Cristian for years, slammed his head into a bookshelf, splitting it open. Weeks later, that same man, Cristian's primary male figure, put a gun to his own head and committed suicide right in front of him. Imagine being a child and witnessing that. Imagine the emotional scars, the fear, and the unresolved anger. Cristian never received proper therapy. No one stepped in with consistent care. Instead, he learned to bury pain, to carry it alone. It was a seemingly normal Monday afternoon in Jacksonville, Florida, but inside the small apartment on Alden Road, something unthinkable happened. Cristian's mother, Bianella, left home to run errands, leaving 3 children inside: 12-year-old Cristian, 2-year-old David, and a younger sister. Hours later, when she returned, David was badly injured, unconscious, limp, his head swollen. Instead of calling, Bianella waited. She waited 8 full hours before taking David to the hospital. By the time she arrived at the emergency room, it was too late. David was placed on life support, but doctors quickly realized the damage was irreversible. He had suffered a fractured skull, a subdural hemorrhage, and bruising around his nose, eyes, and head. Doctors immediately knew this wasn't an accident. 2 days later, David Galarraga was declared dead. Medical staff contacted law enforcement the moment David arrived. The extent of his injuries simply didn't align with the explanation his mother gave, that he had fallen off a bunk bed. Police questioned Bianella, and inconsistencies quickly appeared. Over time, she admitted that David had been left alone with Cristian. Detectives brought Cristian in for questioning. But here's the thing. Cristian was 12. He had no attorney, no parent by his side. He was read his Miranda rights, but court documents would later show he didn't understand them. Still, Cristian eventually confessed. He told police that he had pushed David into a bookshelf and punched him in the head because he had soiled himself. That confession would become the core of the prosecution's case, but it would also later become a major legal battleground. On the 2nd of June, 2011, less than 3 months after David's death, a grand jury indicted Cristian Fernandez for first-degree murder and aggravated child abuse, and not in juvenile court. Cristian would be tried as an adult. At just 12 years old, he faced the possibility of life in prison. The reaction across the country was explosive. Was it justice or cruelty? The state of Florida soon makes a decision that would ignite national debate. The 2nd of June, 2011. A grand jury indicts Cristian Fernandez for first-degree murder and aggravated child abuse as an adult. Cristian is only 12 years old. He becomes the youngest person in Jacksonville history to face adult charges for first-degree murder. The outrage is immediate. Media outlets question, how can a child barely out of elementary school be treated like a hardened criminal? State Attorney Angela Corey defends the move, citing the brutality of David's injuries. Angela Corey, this was not an accident. It was a deliberate act. But critics fire back. Legal expert, the justice system should be about rehabilitation, especially for children. This isn't justice. This is vengeance. Fernandez's defense, teamed by attorney Hank Coxey, argues that Cristian didn't understand his rights when he was interrogated, and the judge agrees. His statements to police are suppressed. They cannot be used in trial. Meanwhile, Bianella Susana, David's mother, pleads guilty to aggravated manslaughter. She faces a minimum of 13 years in prison. for leaving her children unsupervised and delaying medical help. Another twist emerges in early 2012. Cristian is charged with sexual battery against another younger half-brother. But in November that year, prosecutors dropped the case, citing lack of evidence. Now, the community waits to see, will Cristian go to trial for murder? Will the state really try to imprison a child for life? Then, in early 2013, a surprise plea deal changes everything. On a Friday in 2013, Cristian Fernandez pleads guilty to manslaughter and aggravated battery. The sentence? He'll remain in juvenile custody until he turns 19, 7 years total. Upon release, he'll serve 8 years of probation. He must stay away from his siblings, avoid unsupervised contact with minors, get treatment, continue his education, and find a job. The judge leaves open the possibility to terminate probation after 5 years if Cristian stays on the right path. To this day, the Cristian Fernandez case remains one of the most controversial in Florida's legal history. Supporters of the prosecution believe justice was served. Critics argue Cristian was just another child, failed by an overwhelmed system that criminalized trauma instead of healing it. Even Tamara Lave, a law professor who followed the case closely, said, 5 years is better than life, but 5 years in juvenile prison is no cakewalk. In January 2018, Cristian turned 19 and was released from juvenile detention. He had served his time. He entered adulthood not with freedom, but with strict probation, the weight of his past still firmly strapped to his back. Whether Cristian Fernandez finds peace or falls into the same cycles remains uncertain. But one thing is clear. His story forces us to ask difficult questions. At what age should we hold someone fully accountable for their actions? Can children be truly rehabilitated? And what does justice look like when both the victim and the accused are children? Thank you for watching. If you found this case compelling, subscribe to Mystery Unveiled for more deep dives into the world's most haunting true crime stories.